All right. Hey, good evening, folks. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Today is Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. This is your latest tropical update. It has been a pretty quiet season. We haven't had much to talk about here on the channel as far as videos go, but we do have a pretty significant threat brewing down in the Caribbean. Not so much for the U.S. at this point. Impacts for the U.S. still look low, but we do have a pretty significant storm looking like it's going to be developing in the Caribbean and presents a very high risk to parts of Jamaica, Cuba, and parts of Haiti over the next couple of days, maybe even into next week, Bahamas as well. We do have Tropical Storm Melissa here, and this is going to be a problem down the road. So current NHC map this afternoon, Melissa, the only threat they're tracking, maximum sustained winds 50 miles an hour, and that pressure about 1,000 millibars, and it's just kind of crawling to the west-northwest at like 2 miles per hour. Storm is essentially stationary to the south of Jamaica and Haiti. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the cone here. This is the 5 p.m. advisory, and we basically have kind of gotten our answer as to what likely is going to happen with the storm in the short term. We talked about it this morning on the page, and we said that basically Melissa had been, so to catch everybody up, if you haven't been following along on the page, Melissa was a tropical wave that was coming west and was flying into the Caribbean late last weekend and early this week, right? And we knew that as the storm slowed down south of Hispaniola, which is the island that encompasses Dominican Republic and Haiti, we knew this was probably going to, develop. And then from there, we kind of had two possibilities on the table. So Melissa did develop, it slowed down, and then as it's coming up towards this weekend, some solutions still were able to pull this across Haiti and out to sea with a passing trough. We'll show you that. But if this storm missed that trough, which it now appears it's going to, then instead it was going to meander for several days south of Jamaica and will likely eventually try to recurve a second time, but much later on, several days into next week instead of at the end of this week. So this was option one, and we've kind of taken this off the table at this point. So now we're kind of stuck with option two, which is going to be tracking Melissa a lot longer. And this storm could be quite significant by early next week. So we'll go ahead and tell you about why. The biggest threat in the short term and even the medium term is going to be rainfall. It does not appear Melissa is going to stall over Haiti or over Jamaica. We hopefully are confident enough this is going to stay south of them. But you can see that the rainfall forecasts are already up in that 6 to 8 inch range. And this only gets into early next week. It's only about a 4-day forecast. So if we're talking about this stalling for the next 7-8 days, the potential for catastrophic rainfall across parts of Jamaica and especially the south shores of Haiti and Dominican Republic are very high, and they're going to continue to be high for the next couple of days. So definitely going to be a big issue with this. We'll talk about more in the end here. But we'll go ahead and get you over to the current satellite presentation of Melissa. Very sheer tropical cyclone at this hour. We'll pause this during the day when the day band is still up. And the center of Melissa is somewhere right about here. So the center is partially exposed on that west side. And this is due to a very strong wind shear. There's a big trough kind of sitting across this region right now. And there's a lot of strong west to east wind shear over Melissa. But you can see that there's very intense convection on the east side of the storm, what we call down shear. So if the winds are coming from the west to the east, and all your convective activity is pushed to the east of the center of the storm, then you have this kind of lopsided, what we call a sheared tropical cyclone look to it. And this is not unsurprising for the Caribbean this time of year. It can be kind of hostile given the right circumstances. So Melissa's dealing with that and dealing with it pretty well, I'd say. The convection is very impressive. We could pull up an IR shot here to kind of show you what this looks like, but this is a closer view IR. And what you can see, these persistent, really, really deep and cold cloud tops, these pinks and purples and stuff, these are incredibly cold, minus 80 to minus 90 degrees Celsius cloud tops. They're very persistent. You don't really see them kind of go away and come back. They just sort of stay there. So those are indications that this thing is there's a pot lid on this thing right now, but that pot lid is shaking and there's stuff kind of bubbling out from under it. And as soon as that pot lid is lifted off, this thing could really take off. And this is in the face of some pretty significant wind shear. The water vapor satellite imagery probably shows this a little bit better. You can see that the outflow layer for Melissa on this side is being undercut. There's a significant amount of wind just pouring in from the west here. So that's going to kind of be the issue for Melissa. We go and get this to refresh so it quits trying to reload there. So you can see here that the shear is pretty high right now, and that's going to be the case for a couple of more days. But As we work later into the week and into early next week, things are going to change. So we'll talk track, then we'll talk intensity. So the future track of Melissa is a little bit more certain today from the Hurricane Center and from our current models. Some models still hold on to this more early recurve pattern. The GFS is still kind of on this, so any of these models that kind of use some GFS stuff might be trying to track that. But again, that solution where this thing cuts off to the east of Jamaica and moves out to sea quicker, very unlikely at this point. The reason being is that Melissa would have to be significantly stronger than it is right now. So this is a current look at the current steering patterns for Melissa at the moment. So we're going to catch you up to about now. There's a trough sitting to the north of Melissa across the southeast U.S. We just had another cold front come through. Melissa is way down here. So this trough and storm are too far apart right now. So high pressure kind of controls Melissa, and there really isn't anything steering her. You have a high to her east. You have a high to her west. So the storm is just kind of stuck between these steering flows, and it's not really moving anywhere, okay? As we go into the late part of the week, this trough does swing by, and Melissa gets a little stronger, but there's never really enough distance. There's too much distance, rather, between these two entities. Melissa would have to be very strong already, like a significant hurricane. If it was, this weak trough might be enough to coax this thing up and out of here. But the fact that Melissa is going to be a little more of a sloppy, kind of lopsided tropical system means that this trough probably isn't going to be able to pick her up. That was what their models thought a few days ago when they were expecting Melissa to be a little bit stronger, develop a little bit faster. And the fact that it kind of took a little more time is sort of why this option is coming further and further off the table. And it's about to your cat's about to come by and just knock it off completely, because that's where we're at. If that happens, well, that's what happens. So you go into the weekend, you go into Sunday, and all of a sudden you've got this ridge now sitting across Melissa. So you got, again, high here, high here, high here, and there isn't anywhere for her to go. Everything is competing with each other, and there really just isn't anywhere for the storm to go, hence why it just stalls south of Jamaica. Now, as we go into next week, you have our next trough come in, our kind of pre-Halloween trough. A weaker shortwave moves through early in the week, and that kind of helps Melissa begin to start to turn. And then later in the week, a much stronger trough digs in from the central, Midwest, basically. This is what will actually pick her up and pull her out of here. But we're talking Wednesday, Thursday of next week, basically near Halloween, before we can get this up out of here. So again, if we miss that one right there, that little trough right there, the next one isn't coming in until about a week's time from today. So the very much likely scenario here is that Melissa is going to stall or move very slowly and very erratically for the next several days. You can see it from the GFS and Euro ensembles too. The GFS deterministic still does the out to sea early, but again, most of the GFS ensembles, which is why we use these ensemble models, this thing right here, this is why. Most of the GFS ensembles are now on track with the Euro, showing this kind of moving a little bit further north and then turning south of Jamaica and kind of just sitting under Jamaica for a couple of days before eventually in the longer term, you can see here on the longer term ensembles, it does eventually do this kind of like S shape where it moves up, then it comes west, and then the trough grabs it and it goes out to sea. You can see here on both these models, and I'll show you too on the Tomer Berg super ensemble here. This is the grand multi-model ensemble. This is all the GFS, Euro, CMC ensembles, the Google DeepMind ensembles. This takes every ensemble we have and just sprays it out together. And you can see here that it pretty much all uniformly stays away from Florida. So for now, our concern for the U.S. is still limited because Melissa just can't get very far west in the steering flow. But it does have at least some bearings on maybe the end of the week, maybe up here in New England as the storm becomes extra tropical. Something we'll watch. It's a little uncomfortable to have a storm, which is probably going to be really strong that close to Florida. But at the moment, U.S. impacts do not look particularly likely. Now, let's talk intensity for just a minute. Melissa has the potential to become a very powerful major hurricane, probably category 4 or 5. I hate to say that so flippantly, but it's basically the truth. Here's what we're looking at. If we go into next week, so right now, this is Melissa's environment. If we go back to Wednesday, this wind shear kind of messy with a lot of these winds pushing down from the Gulf into the Caribbean. This is her current wind shear pattern, and it's not very favorable for the storm. We go into the weekend, and a couple more days of this persist, right? But as we go towards the weekend, the orientation of the high to our north begins to change. Now you see now how the winds are moving up above Florida versus careening down from the Gulf, how they've switched around. Melissa may find herself in a particularly nice little area, and there's two things to watch here. Number one, upper level anticyclone. You can see here that an anticyclone is going to be present over lots of Central America and over the parts of the Caribbean that she's under. Number two, great outflow channel here to the east where all that extra air being lifted can get up and out of there. And number three, we have this potential for a jet streak to develop. This is where the jet stream comes down and comes back up. And when you place a storm near a favorable jet streak, see this little area of strong winds over Florida, this is about the perfect distance to kind of supercharge the storm. We've seen this in plenty of other hurricanes lately. Milton did this. Michael did it a couple years ago. Like, you get these storms in late season where a fall jet streak sets up and you just get this supercharge effect where it's just like perfectly pulling moisture or pulling mass rather away from the storm's top where it can lift more energy and lift more air up. And these situations can produce very strong storms. The other big key here, oceanic heat content is through the roof. The Caribbean is some of the deepest, warmest water we have right now, especially this time of year. This water has not been touched by anything. You can see these big pockets of super deep, warm water. So even though Melissa won't be moving very fast, and some of you guys that are a little more, if you're watching this video at this point, and you probably know what upwelling is, you know, when you talk about how a storm that is stalled or moving very slowly can begin to use up its heat energy beneath it. Well, that's a big concern if you're a storm and you're sitting right here where the water's not very deep. It's warm, but it's not deep. Over here, rather, where Melissa's going to be, south of Jamaica, you have incredibly deep and warm water. So it takes a long time to upwell all that super deep, warm water. And Melissa will have no shortage of fuel. And given the environment, ship's guidance out here again from Tomer Berg's website, you can see that the potential for rapid intensification is kind of low in the short term with the wind shear kind of staying elevated. But then as we go into 48, 72 hours, the wind shear begins to drop precipitously. The sea surface temperatures increase a little bit, and the potential for max potential intensity kind of goes through the roof at the end of the forecast period. And if you look here on the chart, they have the ship's guidance is currently 25% or 4.7 times the average for rapid intensification at the 72-hour window. So basically another 2 or 3 days, this thing is going to kind of struggle a little bit, and then the lid may fly off this pot. And some of our models are pretty insane. This is the HFAST-B, some of our high-resolution hurricane models showing essentially Melissa, developing throughout Friday and into Saturday, kind of becoming a hurricane Friday, Saturday. And then as it turns, Jamaica would be right there on your screen. As it kind of begins to turn south to Jamaica and it sits over that super warm water, an explosive intensification run begins. And as we go into Sunday, Monday, the HFAST pushes us into the 880s. So, we're talking like Milton, Wilma, like Dean, Allen, like we're talking about like some potential all-timer type stuff. So very possible given the setup, jet streak, slow movement, incredibly deep warm water, anticyclone aloft. You have all the check marks for it. We'll see if it happens. But if the HFAST has got 884 on it, my ears are perked and my eyebrows, all my, hairs are perked. Like we're watching this full scale, So this could be a potential big problem for the region down there. The intensity models, again, some of them are just cruising into Category 5. The official forecast is right on Category 4. That's right with the ship's guidance right now. But that'll probably resolve as it comes back. But a steady, slow intensification through about 60 hours, and then a much more explosive intensification going into about 3 days from now. So probably Saturday morning, and by Sunday, this thing could be kind of a monster. So long-term, guys, we do think this is going to recurve. Look at the European model here because it's got the better solution. And by the way, this model, it's probably hard to see on your screens, but this is down into the 930s on the Euro. If the Euro thinks the storm's going to be in the 930s, you're going to have a powerful hurricane. That's just going to be the way it is. So then it's going to probably recurve eventually, and Jamaica and Cuba may get days of rain, and then they may get a Category 4 or 5 hurricane. So the potential for catastrophe down here in the Caribbean, very high. But a very strong pre-Halloween cold front is going to be coming in, and this trough should be able to kick Melissa out to sea. It'll move up the eastern seaboard. Currently, it looks like it'll stay far enough away from the U.S. to not have any direct impacts, probably just swell, sea waves, that kind of thing. But maybe late week, it does show this kind of becoming an extratropical cyclone. Over New England, you could have kind of a powerful early season winter storm type thing going on, but we'll see. It's going to be pretty far out. So I'm not sure how it's going to play out yet, but that's what I got for you guys today on Melissa. Sorry, pretty long video, so we'll wrap it up. Just again, major threat to Jamaica, Cuba, Haiti, especially Eastern Cuba. Right now, limited threat to the eastern U.S. Hopefully, weather patterns going to keep us safe this late in the fall or this late in October. But again, by the end of the weekend, we could have a very powerful hurricane on our hands down south of Jamaica, and very big impacts coming for the Caribbean, Bahamas, Cuba, and maybe points northward. We'll see. That's what I got for you guys today on your tropical update. As always, thanks for watching and have a good one.